Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to take a minute so that we're letting all the attendees in right now. So just a minute and then we'll begin the program. Thank you. Okay, I think we will begin. So good afternoon, everyone. Konnichiwa. Akemashite omedetou gozaimasu. I'm Reina Kaneko. I am the president of Japan America Society, or JASH, as we're better known. Thank you for joining us today for our third installment of our Taste of JASH Nomu edition, tonight featuring Manoa Honey and Mead. For those of you who are on, we would like to encourage you to turn on your video camera because we want it to be like a mead party. So please turn on your camera so we can all see each other like we're in person almost. Some of you may be familiar with our Taste of JASH series, which we started back in 2019, pre-pandemic, where we featured food and education on our sister states in Japan. So we did them at local Japanese restaurants. Then the pandemic hit and we haven't been able to do those live restaurant events since, but we hope to hopefully in 2022. So during these Taste of JASH events, we feasted on regional cuisine, we learned about regional hotspots and enjoyed the company of our JASH friends. We decided to expand on this Taste of JASH concept by this time featuring local distillers who source their ingredients locally. So please stay tuned, as I mentioned a minute ago, for our live Taste of JASH, the return of our live Taste of JASH events. We would love to be able to see all of you gather safely together again. Before we dive into this evening's program, I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for today's program, JASH NexGen-er Gina Maeda. Wave, Gina. So Gina was born and raised here in Pearl City. She's a proud Charger alum who went on to graduate with a PharmD from the University of the Pacific. After working as a pharmacist for Kaiser Permanente, Hawaii for almost 9 years, it was time for a career change, and Gina joined the MDX Hawaii team as a quality program analyst. Today, she is a practice performance manager with United Healthcare. Gina has been a member of the Honolulu Japanese Junior Chamber of Commerce since 2010, serving in different board positions, including Cherry Blossom Festival General Chair. She also enjoys volunteering with nonprofit Sakura Hawaii Alumni and coordinating press and media relations for local conventions, Kauai-Con, is that how you pronounce it, and Comic-Con Honolulu. Earlier in 2021, she joined the JASH NexGen committee to help with our annual Natsumatsuri celebration. And in 2022, Gina looks forward to serving as state president for JCI, Junior Chamber International Hawaii, and continuing to connect with fellow JASH NexGeners. So Gina, take it away.
Thank you so much, Reina. Very honored to be here tonight. And before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. We are using a Zoom format tonight, so everyone is currently muted, but please feel free to type your questions into the chat box and we will do our best to answer them throughout tonight's program. And also, like Reina mentioned, if you do feel comfortable, please go ahead and turn on your camera so that we can see everyone's lovely face and enjoy our mead together. Tonight, we are so honored to have Yuki Uzuhashi from Manoa Honey and Mead. Yuki and his wife, Erica, own and run Manoa Honey and Mead, originally founded in Manoa Valley in the late 90s. Yuki's interest in bees began when he was studying sculpture at a Kyoto art school. Since taking over Manoa Honey and Mead in 2014, Yuki and Erica have poured their passion into producing the finest products, including their lineup from raw honey to honey infusion, specialty hive products, and to Oahu's one and only Hawaiian craft mead. So aloha and welcome, Yuki-san.
Thank you. Aloha. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're excited to have you here. Did you want to talk a little bit more about yourself and about your company?
Yes. Our company manages about 300 colonies of beehives throughout this island. And we've been harvesting honey since we've taken over the business. That was 2014. And since then, it's about 8 years. Me and my wife moved from Japan straight to Waihawa location without knowing left or right. And we just started the honey production from that year. And 8 years has passed. And last year, is it last year or almost 2 years? When the pandemic hit, we've started to sell the meat products that we have been in preparation for about a year prior to that, but we rushed to release that to supplement our loss of revenue. And since then, I've been pouring a lot of energies to learn still a lot of science behind the fermentation, but also selling it and keep consistent quality of our mead.
So I know that we had mentioned before, or you had mentioned before when we were talking the other day, is that it was actually by chance that you came to Hawaii and you and Erica, your wife, settled here in Hawaii, right? Did you want to share a little bit about that story, how you ended up here?
Well, yeah, it's a really long story, and it doesn't really relate to any of beekeeping or agricultural aspects or even the business. But I was already a beekeeper before I come to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And right after the graduation of my college, that I decided to become a beekeeper. And after a couple of years or more than that, I became independently running my own business. But I felt that, if I'm doing this, or questioning myself, am I doing this forever? This type of business. Yeah. And if that was the time that I really needed to expand or get into the venture, so that I sought out the opportunities for me to just to spread my wings and just to do totally different things. That was around, I was 28 or 29, and so 23 that I started learning about the bees. So it's about like 5 to 6 years later. And I found a recruitment of a sailboat race crew on a magazine. They were trying to find the people who wanted to deliver the boat from Japan to California. And maybe after that, who wanted to participate on a sailboat race from Long Beach to Honolulu. And I had no experience on a sailboat, but I was ready for her challenging something new. So actually I applied it, and I kind of jumped onto the campaign. And luckily I was selected as a delivery crew and also the race crew. So that was totally, I wasn't really planning on going to Hawaii, but it's just a coincidence of that final destination of that sailboat was Hawaii. And the lucky thing that when I landed San Francisco, right around the Golden Gate Bridge, there was a Japanese sailboat team that was active in the Bay Area. They were to welcome us, and they were to take us to the immigration office, because we don't know where to go within the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. On that boat, my wife, she was on the boat, and that was the first lady that I saw after those rough 40 days on the ocean. So why not? No, it's a nature instinct of whatever or the creatures.
So
But
go ahead.
that's how I encounter or I met my wife, and and after that, the campaign went on, and still, we weren't in that kind of deep relations or whatever. But that was the first girl that I saw after those rough days. But so the race boat went on, and the race went on. So Honolulu was the final destination, and once the race boat campaign was over, I almost like I took a 1-year break from my independent work. So I could stay longer after that. And I started to look for any of the beekeepers around on this island. And that was the time that my friend introduced me to previous owner. And I helped him out for about a month or two, just a volunteer basis. But that's the first time I came to Hawaii and I met the owner.
Wow. So it sounds like the moral of the story is to just try new things. You never know who you'll meet or what you'll learn.
Very much true.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's very brave of you too, to try something that you've never done before, and to just keep learning. And I'm sure that applies to your beekeeping as well, right? We're always learning new things. And it sounds like you're not afraid at all to travel to to new places by sailboat or other.
There was a reward.
The reward was that you met your wife, and that's beautiful. And I believe that you also mentioned that you had some pictures that you wanted to share about your beekeeping and some of your travels even. Did you want to share those photos and we can go through some of those?
Let me see. Maybe I'm gonna share the screen, right?
Yeah.
So share the screen first, and to this preview.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Do I go? Maybe I should go full screen, I guess, or enter full screen. Is it? Can you see?
Yep. Now it's the full screen with the, I think it's Makaha. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get a lot of questions, and it's pretty natural that people ask that how honey is made, and even everybody's so familiar with the honey itself, but not so much people know that how honey is made. And even people asking, are we adding sugars, or how are you going to make the honey? And I say it's coming from the flowers, and I tell them that it's a concentration of nectar from the flowers, and some people just weren't ready, that it just kind of blown away that they never thought about the honey was coming from flowers. And it's pretty fascinating when you think about it, that the bees collect the very thin sugary nectar out of those tiny flowers, and make it into very high concentration of sugar, that it's 80% sugar in that liquid. About, in the honey, that 100 grams of honey, it's about 80% is sugar, and rest, like about 19%, 19.5 is a water. But the nectar in a natural form in the flower is around like 5% to at the most like 10% of sugar in the nectar. So they have to really concentrate, taking those nectar from the flowers and make it into the honey. So there's a lot of work involved from individual bees, and as a colony, they have about 50,000 worker bees in a hive that they work together to collect the nectar from the flowers, and those bees bring back the nectar from the flowers, and they transfer the nectar mouth to mouth, and by doing so, they taking away those moistures from the honey, or nectar and honey in that stage. And once it becomes certain concentration of honey, they started to store in the cells. So this is the cells that we're seeing. So when as you can see, that top part is capped, and the middle part you see kind of liquidish, open cells. That's still unripe honey, and below that you see a little bit powdery stuff. That's pollen. So there's two main reasons that the bees go to the flowers is that they go for of course the nectar, but primarily they're attracted to the pollen. The pollen is a great source of the protein for the babies to build up their muscles, or they make their bodies. So they collect the pollen as a nutrients, for their babies, and they also collect the nectar from the flowers too. And once the nectar becomes certain concentration, they start to store in those open cells. And once that's stored in a cell, that the final process that the bee is going to be fanning all those the frames or the cells, and the final touch is to evaporate some moisture in the honey. And once it reaches certain sugar content, they cap with the beeswax that's on the top side to the right. So that the honey will last almost a couple of thousand years, become very antiseptic, very, how to say, that's very stable material.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's quite a long time that will last.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's different locations, like as you're scrolling through the photos. So there's how many different locations do you have on Oahu for your bees?
We have about 7 to 9 locations right now. And we used to have more, but some fluctuates, depending on the landlord situations and this and that. But that's about 7, and three on a Waianae side, 2 in Mililani, and central, 3 or 4 in the central area, and a couple in the North Shore.
How about our neighbor islands? Any plans to go to Maui or Big Island or?
No, we don't know. It's a too much. It's hard to operate. Yeah, remotely. Yeah.
Have you noticed the different flavors of honey, like when it comes from different plants, like versus like a flower versus a tree? Do you notice the taste?
So I think why I was fascinated and why I became a beekeeper was that just to know that there are so many flavors of flower types around the world. A lot of people thought, and I used to think that honey was only one flavor, that honey flavor, and honey is honey. And up until I get to one honey shop in Japan that they offered multi flavor from different regions and different countries that offer a different taste. And from there that I started to really look for honey wherever I go, and bought back regional honey from different regions, so that every region offers a different honey. And that's the beauty of it, I guess. You visit the places, and you get to meet a beekeeper, or you get to buy a different honey from different flower source.
Mhm. We actually have another good question in the chat right now. For your locations of your hives, does the weather play a factor in where you choose to set up your hives?
Yes. So I'm talking about Hawaii situation, but Hawaii, even on this small island, we have what you call climate bubbles, or microclimate, where west side is very dry, and that is abundance of kiave trees. Kiave makes a great honey, and it crystallizes well, but it just crystallizes in very fine cream form. So we make a cream honey out of it. And when you look at the Central Oahu North Shore, even towards the windward, there's a lot of Christmas berry trees that they blooms around summer to fall, and that produces golden, very unique taste profile honey, and that it just doesn't really crystallize. It's very unique, and it just offers very different floral sauce. Yeah, depending on where you keep the bees.
Yeah. So related to the next question that I see in the chat, the next question is, do you have a type of honey that you prefer over others? And related to that, I noticed that in the picture that you had of the honeycomb, there was different colors of honey in there. So some was darker and some was lighter. Are those different types of honey in that photo?
In this
Oh,
one?
there.
Right.
The previous one where it was some some looks like some honey might be darker than others. Are those different types of honey, or?
Yeah, it can be. So when you see darker honey and lighter honey, definitely that's coming from different flower source. And what the bees that they work very smart, that they try to collect the nectars out of what is most abundant within the region, within the time frame. So they don't try to. They have a communication system that they'll tell each other what's coming up the most. So everybody is on the same page to get to the kiave flowers. Just you don't pay attention to any other non much of a producing nectar plants. So honey, usually it tends to get a little more uniform in one frame, but one frame to the other frame, I'm talking about the frames, is going to be on the left side, where the wooden frames are inserted. That's a frame that vertically inserted in a box. But so depending on when the bees store the nectar or the honey, that really changes the color and the color of the honeycomb as well.
Oh, okay. Do you have a preference? Like for you, do you prefer one kind of honey over another?
I like kiave honey. I like the mild honey, and I like kiave, which is my favorite. But if you're using for like cooking, or even if you wanted to give a strong honey flavor to your pancake, I think you want to use more of a darker honey, like macadamia nut or mixed blossom. That gives you a nice honey flavor to it.
So I actually have a little bottle of your Pele's Gold right here. So
yeah, that's a on a richer, darker honey. Yeah,
it's really good. You really don't need a whole lot of it.
no, yeah.
It is very rich. So when you work with the bees, how do you do that safely so that you don't get stung, and you also don't hurt the bees also?
Wow, yeah. Well, yeah, I think not making vibration or not moving aggressively is very important. The factors that they really hate, banging or scratching or vibrations when you're opening the hives. So you go really slow and opening it. So that way maybe we don't hurt much of bees. So it's, I think, saving both of our lives, but we're stealing honey, so we're getting stung a lot.
Oh. So it's just like people, we don't like loud noises and
Yeah,
don't like to get woken up all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So for bees, what does their average lifespan look like? Like, do you know, like, normally how long a hive could last?
So this is, where did it go? The queen bees, they tend to live about, this one, you see a longer abdomen in the center. That's a queen bee. They tend to live about 2 to 3 years. And she is asked to lay eggs, every day. And in the peak, they lay about 2,000 eggs a day, which is
Wow.
a lot. And the amount of eggs that they lay fluctuates, from season to season. But basically, she is kind of laying machine. And and besides that, you see, surrounding the queen is the worker bees. And worker bees, that they live about, when it's busy season, they said to live only about a month. And they work hard, and they just pretty much worn out and die.
Oh,
But
wow.
those worker bees were born around like fall. They have kind of slower time in the winter time, so they get to live 4 to 5 months, I guess. That's the longest of the lifespan. So but I take it, a lot of people think that queen bees are sort of like on top of that caste, and they dictate, and they give orders, and it's like a queen. But queen bees are, like I said, it's almost like a laying machine. And if the reproduction level gets lower, sometimes she gets really pushed out or even be killed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's very harsh, it's a nature.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea. I was thinking the same thing, is that I thought that the queen was like the manager of the hive.
No, yeah, she is the only one reproductive system in the hive. So once that fails, the whole colony is gonna collapse. So she's being monitored, every moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my
she
goodness.
is protected, in a way. So the reason that why worker bee is gonna sting people or other predators is to protect the queens and their youngs. So the worker bees are female, and of course the queen bee is a female, and there's a drone is a male, and only about 5% of population is the drone. And those are the boys that, what do? Is they do nothing but mating. And they just eat the food, and they kind of, walk around, or sometimes they go for a walk, outside and come back. And they kind of waiting for a chance to mate with other virgin queens. That's their job. They don't protect the hives, and yeah, they do nothing.
Learning so much. So we have another question regarding the different species of bees. And I think you've mentioned before too that you travel to other countries to work with other beekeepers. So as far as different species of bees and maybe what you've seen from country to country, do different species produce different kinds of honey or different quantity of honey?
I am really not familiar with other species. In Japan, we have other species called Apis cerana, which is the honeybee family. And it is smaller and very similar to the honeybees that we see. This is, we call it European honeybees. And those are the Asian honeybees. But they are really hard to work with, and somewhat they're more adaptive to humans' ego. Or those European bees, they thrive in adapting to humans' needs. So I think we're co-evolution, or what, I don't know what I wouldn't call it evolution, but from the reason that European honeybees are easier to handle or to travel together. They've spread from Africa to Europe, Europe to Eurasia, Asia, and almost to America, Southern America, just conquering, the world per se, because there's no other species of the insects that are spread all over the world like this and benefiting, humans, society. But in terms of different regions, different species, I haven't really worked with other species, but whenever I go to, this is California, very different mindset of in it, the flowers, and that's the most, I think, lucrative or the most money making I think sector in terms of industry in the beekeeping industry. Am I talking too long?
Wow. Oh no. No, maybe somebody hit the wrong button, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you're good, Yuki-san. You're good. We're good on time. Yeah.
Yeah. But every place we go, we share the same language. It's a bee language. So we everybody knows, what the bees are, and we just get to, to the same language and share the stories. That's a really fun part.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's great that you get to still travel and meet all these new people and the different ways that they take care of different bees and take care of their hives. And actually, speaking of the hives, how often do you harvest the honey from each of your hives? Like, is this like a daily thing that you're going out, or weekly?
More on a monthly basis, yeah. So depending on the season, wintertime we don't have any honey coming in, but in the summer month, we often take honey from one hive about once a month to 1.5 months period.
Oh, okay. Wow. And then so when you do go out to the hive and you harvest the honey, is it those vertical slats that you were talking about? Is it several of those that you?
Yeah, so we call it frames, like I'm holding right now, that those frames, there's 10 frames goes into a hive, and each chamber, you could stack it up like 2 to 3 stories high, and each chamber has, some chamber has a more of a baby's brood, and some chamber has only honey. So we take the frames of honey back to the shop and we spin it and we extract the from the frames.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of hard work. So yeah. So I know you mentioned before that the pandemic, that COVID-19 pandemic, really affected your business, right? What other kinds of challenges have you been facing in the last few years? Like, has it been weather? Has it been changes in the areas that you have the hives? Like, what other kinds of challenges have been coming along?
Well, actually, since we saw a drop of sales of honey, we took almost a break of beekeeping side. That was 2021 last year, because we had enough inventory and there was no honey selling, so that we just couldn't afford keeping bees, or I mean we kept the bees, but hiring for somebody to maintain or extract and stuff. So we sort of took a break, and I could fully focus on the meat production. So without that pandemic pause, I wasn't able to secure my time of really like focusing on developing on the new products, the mead. So in a way that it really worked out, that conventional momentum just got paused, and really it was really rough, for everybody to seeking out which direction are we going to be pivoting or, going for? And, still people wonder that are we going back to the same normal world, or, totally changed that we have to move on. And during those times that, I think I was lucky that I had something that I could focus on, even though that's not really profitable yet, but at least that I could focus on and seeing some brighter lights, at the end of the tunnel that I could keep the hope for.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, I'm glad that you brought up the mead, because we can talk a little bit more about your mead and the mead production. I think in the email it recommended the Lilikoi mead. I didn't get a chance to go out and pick up the Lilikoi, but we do already have the ginger honey and the fruit punch in our fridge at home.
Yeah.
So I know that it looks like you do have quite a few flavors to choose from, right? From your from what you make. Is it just those three flavors for now, the Lilikoi, fruit punch, and the ginger honey, or is there?
And we have pineapple.
Oh, and pineapple.
Mm.
Do you have a favorite out of those four?
I'm liking pineapple myself, and which is more drier than the Lilikoi or the fruit punch, and has a nice acidity that I could pair with food. So you can pair Lilikoi, or it's not something that is too dry, but if you're, the pineapple has a nice acidity that you could pair with the food. So I'm kind of liking pineapple. But yeah, we have 4 varieties as a regular sparkling mead, which is Lilikoi, ginger, pineapple, and fruit punch.
So I think mead is something that's been becoming a little bit more popular in the last few years, and not everyone is too familiar with it. Did you kind of want to go through that process of making mead? How long does it take? What is it?
Yeah, so yeah, and even the term mead is not familiar, or it's not regular word, we hear in our daily lives. And a lot of people say, oh, I read the mead in a novel, like medieval, those type of like writings. But I think the mead, even the term comes from miel, or French, Latin terms of mead, honey is miel or meal or med, and I think naturally coming from that time that they're using med or mid or made, that type of word. But it's a fermentation, it's alcohol fermentation from the honey. But I said the honey won't spoil for thousands of years, but I think the first what do you call, like initial primal time that accidentally the rain mixed it into the honey pot, and after a few weeks or few months, that when people open up, has a nice smell, and when you drink it, it gives you a kind of buzz, or I think that was the first encounter of human race to touch the alcohol. That was around like before BC, like 6,000 years or even 10,000 years BC, before beekeeping was held. So before the beekeeping, people were hunting the honey, and at that time, I think they were experiencing some alcohol, production, a little bit accidental alcohol production. But when it comes to Egyptian era, there were a systematic beekeeping, and there was a beekeeper, and there was like a honey protector type of like petroglyph, that there those people that protecting the honey. And also there were a petroglyph that of who created the alcohol. There was already in a picture, so they were already making alcohol in Egyptian era. And once the Roman Empire interacted with those Egyptian empires, Of course, there's a lot of counterculture, like, crossing culture, what do you call those cultural crossovers. And around that time, the practice of beekeeping went into those small islands of, Mediterranean islands, Creta, Malta, and also went to the Greek and Greek to the Rome. And together with the mead, honey wine production went together with the practice of beekeeping. So I think that's before massive grape production is held in that Mediterranean area. So around that time, honey was most accessible sugar source in, for them to make the alcohol. So one time, it was really popular alcohol drinks around, like, I don't know, old times, but I think it lost the status to the great grape wines. And those places who didn't have a good climate to grow grapes, such as like German, Finland, Norway, those colder regions, I think they still stuck to producing of the mead. So traditional mead, what we call, is oftentimes comes from like a northern Germany, Belgium, or northern Europe, and those are very sweet and honey forward, very higher alcohol wine. That is really lot of people associate with the mead is that bold, syrupy mead.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I hope people don't mind, but I'm going to open my bottle of mead here. I'm kind of curious that if anyone else has already started drinking, like, please type your thoughts into the chat. We would love to hear what you're sampling tonight. Oh, Yuki-san, you have the fancy glass. So when you taste mead, is there a certain way to do it, or is it like wine tasting where you smell it first and then you taste,
Yes,
or anything like that?
I don't think I'm not a wine expert, but definitely, there's a aroma that you can enjoy of honey and the fruits that's co-fermented together. And also ours is more in a bubbly, so you just wanted to, enjoy the refreshing feeling that goes through the throats, and, like the taste profile of honey and the fruits. But yeah, I just don't know. I would have to ask somebody, to how to enjoy.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of bubble. So I poured out the fruit punch just because I love this color. It's such a gorgeous color. It reminds me of rosé a little bit, and there is quite a bit of carbonation in here. Is the carbonation added?
Yeah, it's
Or
forced carbonated.
oh, okay. There's been some mead that I've tried that does taste like what you mentioned. It's very honey forward, kind of syrupy, very sweet, and it's flat. There's no carbonation in it. Do you know, is certain like bubbles, is it popular in Hawaii because it's hot here, or is it like a cultural difference?
Right, but it just really comes down to me that I wanted to drink this bubbly, light mead. So after sweating, working outside and coming back, you can't drink that sweetened room temperature alcohol, in Hawaii. So during my development of my mead, there's so many different spectrums of, direction, or, what kind of mead to produce. But I just really stuck with, what I wanted to drink, and which is something really cold and really refreshing, not too sweet, and something fruity.
Yeah.
So I think the mead is to enjoy in Hawaii around this time. Yeah, pauhana, and yeah, that's what I wanted to drink. So I hope this feeling is pretty similar to everybody, and yeah,
Yeah. No, I love that idea. I actually do enjoy carbonated mead because since I've tried both, it is very much more refreshing to have the bubbles, and it feels like you're celebrating, right? It feels like almost like champagne, right? Like
Yeah.
you're celebrating something,
Yeah.
but it's light enough to drink every day.
Right.
I don't know if you should drink it every day, but
Please, yes.
yeah. Uh, so normally when you make a batch of mead, how long does it take for that fermentation process to make a batch?
It's about it's pretty fast than a traditional winemaking, and somewhere I would say always the taste too is between beer and wine, and process is similar too. It takes about 2 months to create the one batch of those sparkling style. So it's not that fast, but it's not too long. The wine takes sometimes more than a year, and beer is usually 2 weeks to 3 weeks, depending on the style. So yeah, it just um, more enough. I would say it's more casually, it's faster than the wines. But some styles that I'm releasing end of this month will be flat ones, and I'm releasing a traditional mead. So those one took a year to mature.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's something that if you have a chance, I want you to come to our shop and buy a bottle to tell me what you feel about this traditional mead.
And I think you've mentioned before too, the last time that we talked, you started doing tastings, right? At your location. Did you want to share a little bit about your tastings and how it's going?
Yes, so we have a tiny retail shop in our factory space, and the retail shop itself is open on weekdays, from Tuesday to Saturdays. But on Saturdays, we're offering mead tasting, and you get to taste. We're charging about $12 for 4 kinds of mead, and you get to taste those 4 sparkling styles that we offer. And once we release those flat ones, you have a choice to select what kind of mead that you want to try.
The flat mead, it sounds like it might be closer to like a wine, like maybe a white wine. Is that kind of accurate?
Yes, I think so. But I'm releasing 2 different flat mead, and one is gonna be very on the sweeter side, and the one's gonna be drier side. And drier ones is more on a white wine feeling, but we aged it in a Kohana rum barrel.
Oh,
So it has a nice woody feature to it, and of course there's a honey and slight bubbles it's occurring in. So it's very I, like I'm not a winemaker.
that sounds interesting though, especially the Kohana rum barrels. Like that sounds delicious, honestly. So I'm very excited to try that. We'll have to well, Reina, we'll have to schedule a little JASH excursion out there and try that once that's released. Um, and sorry, I missed a question earlier in the chat box. Do you know if mead is popular in Japan, or do you export any of your mead or honey to Japan?
I don't think it's popular at all. And although we try to sell the mead to Japan, nobody's coming. And I think they're trying to get to the shopping cart, and you place an order for $100, but the shipping is like maybe $250 or something. It's just what you're paying for. I think that the shipping really doesn't match of our price. So we haven't really sold any bottles to Japan yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's got to be difficult. I mean, these are glass bottles, and
Yeah.
it's carbonated, so I'm sure that all of the jostling around during
Yeah.
shipping probably isn't good either.
But we ship to the mainland, so you know, we've been successfully shipping to the East Coast even. So you know, the sending
Wow.
is not that of an issue, I guess.
Mm.
But maybe the cost, and like I said, maybe it's not really popular yet.
Mm. They have to come to Hawaii and
Yeah,
try
yeah,
try the mead here firsthand.
yeah.
So how did you learn about making mead? Like, is there someone that you learned from?
No. So I started off as a home brewer on a weekend basis, and so there's three stages, I guess. I did a couple of years by myself, you know, just to YouTube's and you know a lot of try and errors. And a couple of years ago, I had a chance to attend the UC Davis offers. They have a really great enology or you know winemaking courses or beer. They have a great programs, but they had a short mead production, advanced mead production course or something. So I attended there just for a week, you know, short class, and I get to kind of know a little more of a basics, you know, or science behind it. And after that, actually, I applied for a USDA's value added grant. Um,
Oh.
as a honey producer, we wanted to add the you know the value to the honey, which is the mead. And actually, I was able to hire one consultant, and that really brought me of totally next level of you know creating the recipe. So together we created a recipe with them. That's the sort of like a draft or base of the Lilikoi mead that we're drinking right now.
Oh wow. Wow. That's a you know, it's really interesting that you're so self-taught with a lot of the things that you do. And it's things that are it's so out there. Like normally you don't normally come across a beekeeper like in day-to-day interactions. So that's really interesting how you've learned all these different skills over the years. Um, there is a comment in the chat box I wanted to share with you, Yuki-san. One of our attendees says that they received a bottle as a gift and they enjoyed it very much. They wanted to get another one for today, but the Aina Haina Foodland was sold out. So yeah, so congratulations on selling out in
They
Aina
should have been
Haina.
ordering. We had a delivery yesterday, so they should have been
Oh,
ordering. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. But
oh shucks,
uh,
maybe they just missed the shipment.
mm.
Wow. Oh, and so do you so when you drink your pineapple mead, since you said that's one of your favorites right now, do you pair it with seafood or is there a particular mead that or a
Yeah,
meal that you like to pair it
seafood is
with?
good, and a lot of like a Mediterranean, you know, like a pasta, the Italians, or you know, cheese. Those are really good, and but I'm kind of tried a lot with more of a Japanese food. It didn't really go well, so I maybe I have to develop something that goes well with Japanese food. You know, Japanese food has naturally more of a on a sweeter side. You know, like rice is sweet and
Mhm.
shoyu and sometimes you know or dashi, you know, like all those umami tends to we taste a little more in a sweeter or milder, you know, than
Mhm.
acidity like tomatoes or you know this and that. So somewhat it doesn't really go well with Japanese food, but
Mhm.
yeah, I like it on more on you know like a conventional that kind of appetizer type of food is goes well with our meat.
Yeah. So so I've been sipping on the fruit punch mead and
Mm.
it's it's very floral. I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised that it does smell like honey, but it's also very floral. So it's really
Mm.
nice. It really does remind me of a rosé.
Mm.
Um, so this is something I feel like could even be dessert. It's
Yeah.
it's very nice. Yeah. Um,
So that fruit, of course, we use the the local honey, but we use the lilikoi, mango, Tahitian lime, and dragon fruit. Those 4 summer fruits are in that punch, and
Wow.
all of them, sourced, except the lilikoi, all of them coming from Waianae side. Friend farmers. So you're getting some buzz, like when you drink, but that's coming from the flowers around us, and also from the fruits, that are grown in the area. So when I drink a lot, I just sometimes I'd be really happy that being surrounded with, that intoxication that I'm feeling is that coming from here. So that's really a beauty of consuming local alcohol. It's not just you're making you happy, but it's just coming right next to you from your neighbor.
Yes, agreed, agreed. So I just noticed the time. It looks like we have a few more minutes. So Yuki-san, was there anything else that you wanted to share? Maybe different places that people can find your honey or your mead? Any last words that you wanted to share before we close out?
Yeah, so we sell to the Fu Lands that has a great presence on the island, but you have to look for the Fu Land has a Arfield wine company within the store. So basically, we're not really selling directly to the Fu Land, but we're selling to Arfield wine company, and that has a Aina Haina, Kailua, and even in Kapolei, and Pearl City Fu Land Farms carries our products too. So those are the places that you can find our mead. And also you can go to that the village bottle shop in Kaka'ako. And in Kailua, there's a small bottle shop called the Gracing Growlers. They carry our products too. So supporting small bottle shop is better than, well, not better, but it's great to support the smaller ones too.
Yes.
So I'm kind of putting up, but and yeah, honey products too. They carry our honey, and you can find at the Whole Foods and Food Land. So it's if you can try some, that'd be great.
Yeah, and we'll see you at your tasting room for sure. But thank you so much, Yuki-san, for providing this wonderful opportunity for all of our guests to learn and talk story with you from Manoa Honey and Mead. We loved learning about how you make delicious honey and mead, but also sourcing everything locally, and definitely #shop local, support local, right?
Yeah.
And everyone, if you enjoyed this program, please do consider becoming a JASH member or making a donation so that we are able to continue to bring you quality programming. Please visit our JASH website. That's jashhawaii.org, JASHAWAII.org, to learn more about our organization and to also view some of our past virtual programs and events. On behalf of the Japan America Society of Hawaii, thank you so much for joining us tonight. A quick survey will be sent to you shortly. Please do take 1 to 2 minutes to complete that survey so that we can continue to bring you programs such as this. Please stay safe and healthy and enjoy the rest of your evening.